West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Judge Eileen Cannon's out with a new paperless order. Here's what she ruled. She's temporarily stayed the SEPA Section 5 and Rule 16 expert disclosure deadlines in the case. And then she writes that an order setting a second set of pretrial deadlines and hearings is to follow, signed Judge Eileen Cannon. It should be noted that she has not yet moved the trial date in the Mar-a-Lago document case, which is still scheduled for May 20th. She has now delayed or stayed the SEPA deadlines and other expert disclosure deadlines in connection with the trial. But what in the world is Judge Eileen Cannon doing here? Look, we previously reported over the weekend, and hat tip to NPR for investigating this, about Judge Eileen Cannon not disclosing lavish trips she took to a Montana lodge, which is known for its beautiful spas, its exquisite scenery, its 5-star dining that was paid for by Federalist Society members and donors of the George Mason University's Justice Scalia School of Law. When NPR contacted Judge Eileen Cannon about the lavish trip she didn't disclose, what did Judge Cannon do? She blamed the court clerk and the court website and said, there must just be some technical issues taking place with the federal court disclosure website. And then all of a sudden, lo and behold, Judge Cannon's trips that she took and were funded for by donor money, sending her on lavish trips to Montana, were suddenly disclosed once NPR requested comment. That is who Judge Eileen Cannon is. And we've been reporting this, that like on March 1st, you remember this? On March 1st, Judge Eileen Cannon held a hearing where she was supposed to hear oral argument. I mean, the people, Jack Smith and Trump's lawyers made these arguments. She was supposed to hear oral argument on the trial date, which was scheduled for May 20th, and all of the other associated dates in the case that were aligned with the trial date, to ultimately determine if there would be a new trial date and what the other dates would need to be set for this case. One of the things you'll remember in my reporting that I flagged, starting 9 months ago at this point, I was saying, look, this is a SEPA case, Classified Information Procedures Act case. And in SEPA cases, you set SEPA Section 5 hearings fairly early on in the process. In a SEPA Section 5 case, or a SEPA case with SEPA Section 5 disclosures, SEPA Section 4 issues involve the government withholding documents and replacing them or substituting them where there could be serious national security concerns and where the documents are not relevant or helpful in the defense. And there's a whole SEPA Section 4 process. But SEPA Section 5 involves the criminal defendant in a case involving classified information disclosing relatively early on in a case involving classified information the types of classified documents the criminal defendant wants to inject at a public trial, so there could be hearings to determine whether or not these documents should be made public in front of the jury, since they could significantly harm our national security interests. And one of the things that we always expected Donald Trump to do is engage in conduct called gray mail, which is a form of blackmail, essentially, where a criminal defendant says, if you don't dismiss these charges against me, I'm going to fight to make public our nuclear codes. I'm going to try to introduce our war plans. I'm going to try to introduce very sensitive intelligence on foreign countries, and I'm going to try to get a judge to allow me to do it. And federal judges are supposed to serve as guardians in these cases of the national security interests, but also being protective of the due process rights of criminal defendants. Also, any rulings by judges under SEPA Section 5 are immediately appealable rulings. So one of the things we've always been talking about here is that Judge Eileen Cannon refuses to make any real substantive orders regarding SEPA because she knows the moment she does and says, okay, Donald Trump, you can have this in public or that in public, that Special Counsel Jack Smith would go right to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, get her overturned, and get her thrown out of the case. So there's been this, you want to call it a cat and mouse game. I'm not sure who's the cat and who's the mouse or how I'd even describe it, but you have Judge Eileen Cannon not making substantive rulings, doing strange things with her schedule. But the strangest of all is you had that March 1st, 2024 hearing, right? The hearing was 3 months ago at this point. 2 months ago at this point, and Judge Cannon told Special Counsel Jack Smith that she was likely not going to accept the requested trial date of Special Counsel Jack Smith. Jack Smith said, look, Judge, you haven't set SEPA Section 5 hearings early on like you were supposed to. We suggested you did it early. You ignored us. There's no way trial's going to be able to take place before July. Let's set a July 2024 trial date. Donald Trump's lawyer said at the oral argument on March 1st, look, Judge Cannon, there's no way we can do July. You need to push this trial deep into 2025. Kick it out as far as you can. And Judge Cannon looked at Special Counsel Jack Smith and said, look, I think that your date's unrealistic. I'm more inclined to do Donald Trump's request and push this thing out. I'll give you an order. Okay, well, March passed. Remember, the hearing was March 1st, 2024. April passed. No rulings by Judge Cannon on the trial date. And then now we're in May. We're almost in mid-May, and Judge Cannon has kept the May 20th, 2024 trial date. Just think about that, just from a case management standpoint. Like, what? It just shows you how unfit she is. I don't know. Maybe she's thinking about going back to that Montana lodge. Maybe she's thinking about the food at the Montana lodge, the great steak or the great pasta. Maybe she's thinking about the spa or the horseback riding that's being paid for by Federalist Society members. I mean, maybe she's thinking about the wining and dining that all of these wealthy donors were giving her that she wasn't disclosing. Maybe that's what was on her mind, or maybe she was thinking about how she's going to help Donald Trump, probably, but she didn't even move the trial date. So here we are, 13 days from an actual trial. And here's the thing. We haven't really even seen a lot of filings from Special Counsel Jack Smith or even Trump's lawyers, because I think they know the trial's not happening on May 20th. But how do you have zero shred of credibility that you keep the trial date on calendar for May 20th? You haven't reset the deadlines. You just issue a paperless order temporarily staying deadlines for Trump's SEPA Section 5 notice. Then you say you're going to follow up with an order setting a second set of pretrial deadlines for the hearing. That's what you're saying. And it's not even your second set, it's your third set. Remember, there was the first set, then there was the second set that moved things to March, then there was supposed to be a third set after March. So this is actually like the fourth set. And Judge Cannon hasn't done anything with the trial date. It's like, what in the world are you doing? What in the world are you trying to pull? Obviously trying to help Donald Trump. Now, if you're like, Jack Smith, why aren't you going to the 11th Circuit? One of the tactics that she uses is these paperless orders after paperless orders. We also don't know what the United States Supreme Court is, with people like Clarence Thomas, who are also taking gifts from billionaires like Harlan Crow. Clarence Thomas taking like millions of dollars in gifts, going on lavish vacations and private jets. And I think overall, when you just start thinking about it, whether it's Cannon or Clarence Thomas or all these right-wing justices and the Federalist Society, at the end of the day, these judges want gifts, they want a party, they want to live this lifestyle that, I've never thought of should be the lifestyle of judges who are supposed to stand by law and order, and they just make a mockery of our judicial system. Set a trial date. Just you want to move it to 2025? Move it to 2025. I'll criticize you like you deserve to be, but at least you'll have set a trial date sometime. You're just going to leave May 20th with 13 days before trial, then do nothing about it, and then just leave the parties guessing when you told the parties you were going to make an order back on March 1st? After you already didn't even set the appropriate SEPA deadlines? It is absurd. And that's why when I criticize her, and you hear me do this when I criticize her, it's just like, you're just not doing your job as a judge. You're making a mockery of all these other judges by your behavior. You're tainting the entire judiciary, Judge Cannon, and judges like you. You are shameful to our legal profession. Despicable stuff anyway. We'll see what her second set of deadlines is.
It is Tuesday, the 7th of May of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious the little Yorkie is our door girl, and she will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special. Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. You know it always has, and it always will. Okay. Well, how are you? We got the taglines out of the way, at least here for the beginning, because we got a few more to happen. Just letting you know, once more, a confession, the feelings of sadness over this mourning period are, still occurring. So excuse me if my voice quavers or I spent a little bit too much time in it. I just apologize, okay? Alrighty. What do we have going? Well, I should note that I have a little bit of a head cold, so if I sound stuffy, it's because I'm stuffy. And I'm not one to take any of those antihistamines, because you never know what it's going to do to your kidneys or your liver or other parts of your body. Not that I'm anti-science, but I just, being judicious, being careful. All right. Okay, so I got all the confessions out of the way. Man, you would think this is Friday night, being a Catholic, so you go to confession, and then you can take communion on Sunday. But some people better go to confession on Saturday night, because there's a lot of sinning between Friday and Sunday morning. Just letting you know, if you're going to follow the protocol of what it means to be forgiven. Isn't that fun? In the Catholic Church, you're pretty much forgiven temporarily so that you keep coming back for that forgiveness. Or is it absolution? I absolve you of all your sins. Oh, thank you. Well, can I sin again? Just come back and we'll absolve you again. Put a little penance there, a little tithe on your way out. Okay. Holy water ain't free. We did actually a study when I was in grade school to see if holy water had different quantity or qualities in terms of mass. Was it heavy water is what we were thinking. And how would kids start thinking about that? Well, you read books and you learn about science. The next thing you know, you're testing the holy water to see if it's heavy water or just regular. And you know what we found? There's no quantifying way to measure the soul that has added mass and density to the holy water. We tried. So I guess we're just going to have to take it as an article of faith. All right. That's how it works. It sure is. Okay. Well, just a little tidbit of rancor here on the local front. MAGA has, I don't know if these are useful idiots. I can't believe that these people would do this on their own. But I think that there's a level of triggering or whatnot. But the MAGA types are really upping all sorts of OAN and Fox type posts that shows how inflation is just through the roof. 3.7% is the inflation rate. They will not accept that there's price gouging by corporations because we hate capitalism. Do we? I don't like fraud. I don't like usury. I don't like crooks. Of course, in their mind, if you're an elected official, you're a crook. What do they have against democracy? I'll tell you what they have against democracy. Because in a democracy, they're not going to be able to get away with this. Because we'll vote them out. And since we keep voting them out, they go, they don't listen to us. We listen to you and we don't like you. Trust us. We don't respect you. We don't like you. You're a bunch of boorish bullies. And what's more, you want to goose step to a different drummer? That's fine. Just don't goose step over this Constitution and call it your own. I am so mad at this Nazi behavior of appropriation. They took our flag. All right? They stole the Nazi symbol from an Egyptian goddess. Totally the opposite of what these guys were goose-stepping about. Okay, fine. Dixie swastika was not good enough for them, even though they paraded it around in the Capitol building on January 6th. They got to take our stars and stripes. How dare they? Okay. So, with all that ranting out of the way, why don't we give you a rundown on what we have in store for you so that we can just get right into it because we better. Oh, yeah, Eileen Cannon. Talk about activist judges. Ah, boy. I've been telling everybody from the very beginning that it sure seems like this is the kind of lady who likes to, I don't know, crow about her achievements. Maybe not. But she's getting paid off. Junkets, undisclosed junkets. I'm telling you. Clarence, all these FedSoc corrupt judiciary members, I think need to have a second look. Boy, we got our work cut out for us, don't we? Because this is embedded deep. It is. Sorry about the stuffed nose, but there it is. Okay, what else do we have here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? New York filed suit against a dozen anti-abortion groups for promoting false treatments to reverse medication abortions. Yep, everything is a grift for these people. The federal government fined a Tennessee-based sanitation company $650,000 for illegally hiring children to clean meat processing plants on the graveyard shift. And it wasn't just because of the graveyard shift, but they put the kids on the graveyard shift. Go out there and clean those spinning blades, kids. You know their hands are smaller, so they can get into the tight spaces. And after massive downpours flooded the state's rivers and packed mountains with snow, California reported the first increase in groundwater supplies in 4 years. After the break, we moved to the chef's table, where an American soldier was arrested in Russia and accused of stealing from his honeypot girlfriend. I think when you dig deeper into this story, you'll find out, yeah, he was lured. And Jordan stationed 2 firefighting helicopters in Cyprus to help as the summer fire season arrives. What a holiday. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, monitored by Kelly Lincoln, because we still do that, you know. Thank you, Kelly. Across the page to the left from that chat room link, that's near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, is the link to our Patreon page. And thank you to those of you who have become recurring Patreons and who have been recurring Patreons of Netroots Radio over these many years, who have sent us once a month what they would have spent on an espresso type coffee drink. They bought us a cup of joe once a month, and that has helped us pay our bills and all the other sundry costs in running this powerhouse of resistance. So thank you to those of you who have done that, and thank you as a pre-thanks to those of you considering doing so in the near future. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on the social medias, you can do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of those. Thank you, Tom. Follow me on the social medias at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diaries on Daily Co's 10 minutes before showtime. And if you follow me on social media, you'll have quick access to those Daily Co's diaries. And then you can get the show notes and links and read the actual reports by the actual reporters. So do it. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, Audible, just really wherever, even Deezer. Deezer. You can get podcasts on Deezer. Do it. Alrighty, this first offering here. Excuse me. Oh, I didn't mean to sniffle so hard. I apologize, but it's one of those days. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe is by the hardworking staff at the Associated Press. New York is suing an anti-abortion group and almost a dozen pregnancy counseling centers for promoting an unproven method to reverse medication abortions, Attorney General Letitia James announced yesterday, Monday. James sued Heartbeat International and 11 pregnancy centers in state Supreme Court in Manhattan, arguing the groups violated laws around making false or misleading advertisements. The case follows a similar lawsuit in California and other legal action in states such as Colorado regarding unsubstantiated treatments to reverse medication abortions. Medication abortion is the most common way to end a pregnancy. The process involves taking two different drugs, mifepristone and misoprostol, only days apart. According to the New York lawsuit, the organizations promote a protocol called the abortion pill reversal. Does it involve bleach? In which a person who has taken mifepristone is advised not to take the follow-up misoprostol and instead is given repeated doses of the hormone progesterone. The so-called abortion pill reversal treatment has not been approved by federal regulators, and major medical associations have warned that the protocol is unproven and unscientific, the lawsuit said. Abortions cannot be reversed. Any treatments that claim to do so are made without scientific evidence and could be unsafe, James said in a statement. Heartbeat International, in a statement, said the lawsuit is a, quote, clear attempt to censor speech. They want to lie about science. They want to lie about medicine. It's yelling fire in a crowded theater. That is not free speech. And a finger hut of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. A Tennessee-based sanitation company has agreed to pay more than $500,000 after a federal investigation found it illegally hired at least 24 children to clean dangerous meat processing facilities in Iowa and Virginia. I should remind folks, sometimes I do some on-the-spot editorial decisions, so don't blame Hannah for calling it big bucks, okay? Back to the article. The U.S. Department of Labor announced yesterday, Monday, that Fayette Janitorial Service LLC entered into a consent judgment in which the company agrees to nearly $650,000 in civil penalties, and the court-ordered mandate that it no longer employ minors. The February filing indicated federal investigators believed at least 4 children had still been working at one Iowa slaughterhouse as of December 12th. U.S. law prohibits companies from employing people younger than 18 to work in meat processing plants because of the hazards. The Labor Department alleged that Fayette used 15 underage workers at a Purdue Farms plant in Accomack, Virginia, and at least 9 at Seaboard Triumph Foods in Sioux City, Iowa. The work included sanitizing dangerous equipment like head splitters, jaw pullers, and meat bandsaws in hazardous conditions where animals are killed and rendered. One 14-year-old boy was severely injured while cleaning the drumstick packing line belt at the plant in Virginia, the investigation alleged. The Labor Department has called attention to a growing list of child labor violations across the country, including the fatal mangling of a 16-year-old working at a Mississippi poultry plant, the death of a 16-year-old after an accident at a sawmill in Wisconsin, and last year's report of more than 100 children illegally employed by Packers Sanitation Services, Inc. across 13 meat packing plants. PSSI paid over $1.5 million in civil penalties. Staff of the Associated Press brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. After massive downpours flooded California's rivers and packed mountains with snow, the state reported yesterday, Monday, the first increase in groundwater supplies in 4 years. The state saw 4.1 million acre-feet of managed groundwater recharge in the water year ending in September, and an 8.7 million acre-feet increase in groundwater storage, California's Department of Water Resources said. Groundwater supplies are critical to growing much of the country's fresh produce, and might I say, the world's. The semi-annual report came after water officials stepped up efforts during last year's rain to capture water flows from melting snowpack in the mountains and encourage farmers to flood fields to replenish groundwater basins. The impressive recharge numbers in 2023 are the result of hard work by the local agencies combined with dedicated efforts from the state. But we must do more to be prepared to capture and store water when the wet years come. Paul Gosselin, Deputy Director of Sustainable Water Management for the agency, said in a statement, California has been seeking to step up groundwater recharge with ever drier years expected from climate change. Much of the state's population counts on groundwater for drinking water in their homes, and farmers that grow much of the country's food rely on the precious resource for crops ranging from carrots and almonds to berries and leafy greens. Indeed. All right, let us now go to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, this is Your Health Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series.
We bring you the latest vital health news, discoveries that affect your body and your mind.
And we break down the medical research to help you stay healthy. I'm Tanya Lewis.
I'm Josh Fishman.
We're Scientific American's senior health editors. Today on the podcast menu, we've got food. There is renewed interest in using food as preventive medicine, offering patients vegetables or entire meals to keep them healthier and more resistant to disease. But will prescribing produce really work? A lot of people think so, but it's been a little hard to prove.
People talk a lot about the health benefits of individual foods. I hear a lot about blueberries. They're supposed to be filled with antioxidants that stop cell damage, for instance. You got one, Tanya?
Yeah, kale. It's a superfood, or so they say. It packs a ton of vitamin K and vitamin C.
Okay, I confess I know very little about kale and have no idea how I would eat it.
Well, I actually know a pretty good recipe for massaged kale salad.
Massage?
Yeah, you just take raw kale and rinse it, and then you add lemon juice and olive oil and salt and pepper, and just, massage it until it tenderizes into a nice salad.
Cool. I'll totally take your word for that. The other food I was thinking about was my grandmother's chicken soup. It was supposed to be a cold remedy. Actually, it was supposed to be a remedy for just about anything in my family.
That sounds tasty. While we're at it, I believe that chocolate croissants are scientifically proven to be good for the soul. But don't fact check me on that.
Oh, no fact checking here. Debates about the health values of specific foods go back and forth anyway, and you're probably tired of the whiplash. So today we are not going to talk about blueberries or broccoli or chocolate croissants by themselves.
We're going to talk about a trend in medicine in which doctors prescribe healthy food, like bags of fresh produce, just like they'd prescribe blood pressure medication. And a colleague of ours just wrote a news article about this food is medicine movement in the journal JAMA.
What food is medicine is, what makes it distinctive, is it is getting people healthy food or groceries that will create healthy food with the explicit involvement of the healthcare system. So prescribing medically tailored meals or prescribing groceries or actually giving people prescriptions to go and get produce for free.
That's Maren McKenna.
I am a journalist. I focus on science and public health. I'm the author of a couple of books and a science writing professor and a contributing editor at Scientific American.
It's great to have you here, Maren.
Happy to be here.
Now, can you tell us how a food is medicine program works?
In what I think is the most interesting example, there's a very famous physician in Michigan. Her name is Mona Hanna-Attisha.
We know that name because Hanna-Attisha is the pediatrician who helped expose the high levels of lead in Flint, Michigan's drinking water a decade ago, levels that were really toxic.
But she also is an activist for children's nutrition. And since 2015, through her own pediatric clinic, which is part of Michigan State University's College of Medicine, she has been writing produce prescriptions for a farmer's market that was in the same building as her pediatric clinic.
In fact, Hanna-Attisha moved her office above the market to make it easier for patients to get their food.
She moved into the second story of a freestanding brick and mortar permanent farmer's market in downtown Flint, Michigan. And for every child who came into that clinic, she gave that child's family initially a $5 voucher for produce downstairs. It's now $15, and they've expanded to a couple of different sites.
Sounds like a really clever idea. Has it actually made people healthier, though?
Well, it certainly improved the kids' nutrition. The Flint program has written 55,000 prescriptions for this food and given out the vouchers. Now, the amount of fruits and vegetables and fiber and whole grains and dairy that the children ate went up, though it's still not at the levels of federal nutrition guidelines, Maren says.
Now, you and Maren talked about doctors giving out these vouchers like prescriptions. Yet medical insurance doesn't pay for food, right? So where does the money come from?
That's a good question. In Flint, Hanna-Attisha raises money from private charities. Nationally, big foundations are getting involved. The Rockefeller Foundation pledged $100 million, for instance. And in 2022, the White House held a nutrition summit, and after that, federal agencies committed to spending $8 billion on nutrition programs.
That's a lot of dough.
Oh, you had to go there.
Sorry. Well, anyway, I'm still wondering, does this investment in nutrition actually lead to lower risk of disease?
I did ask Maren about that.
Yes, there are some studies that show positive effects in things like reducing hemoglobin, A1C, reducing blood pressure, reducing body mass index.
Higher A1C levels are a risk factor for diabetes. One of the stronger studies was just presented at an American Heart Association conference in March. It looked at what happened in a free produce delivery program in Alameda County, California. After a year, people getting their deliveries had lower A1C and less bad cholesterol than people who didn't get the food delivered.
Wow, interesting. I know there have also been some studies that suggest certain diets can improve specific aspects of health. There's the DASH diet for high blood pressure. It emphasizes fruit, vegetables, whole grains, and low-fat dairy. And it cuts out alcohol and foods with salt, the good stuff that is actually bad for you. There was an analysis combining the results of several diet studies, and it turned out DASH significantly lowered blood pressure, even more than the Mediterranean diet, which lets you have salt and some red wine.
But Marin says there are not a lot of food as medicine studies like the one in California.
The enthusiasm for it is racing ahead of the evidence. And there probably are some good reasons for that. First, it's just a really new concept to actually do this in a measurable medical way, as opposed to just bringing someone a pan of lasagna or a basket of fruit. The second is that doing nutritional studies in free living humans is really hard to do.
As Marin writes in her story, though, more studies are ramping up. The AHA is funding 19 new food as medicine research projects, and the National Institutes of Health has approval to start several research initiatives focused on the idea. Food voucher programs have been around for decades, of course, mostly through the Department of Agriculture. You can use them at local supermarkets. What makes this new effort different is that it empowers healthcare workers to prescribe healthy food rather than just vaguely advise people to eat healthier.
People in this field say, well, we've been kind of hampered in what we were able to say to people beyond, well, you should eat a healthier diet. And then we send them out the door. Where food as medicine potentially takes this conversation is from, I think you should eat more lettuce and carrots. Good luck. See you next year. To, I think you should be eating healthier food. And I have a specific intervention that can help you do that. I can sign you up for a program that will bring you dinner 4 nights a week for a month. Let's see if that makes a difference to your blood work.
And if these interventions are convincing, maybe they'll make a difference in something else, making insurance companies pay for good food and good health. Your Health Quickly is produced by Corinne Leung, Madison Goldberg, Jeff Delvicio, and by us. It's edited by Ella Fetter and Alexa Lim. Our music is composed by Dominic Smith.
Our show is part of Scientific American's podcast, Science Quickly. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And now, some bittersweet news. This will be our last episode of Your Health Quickly. After 3 years and 2 months, the show as it currently exists will be ending as we transition to a new podcast format.
We launched this podcast in February of 2021. It was called COVID Quickly. We had 3 people and a humble goal to quickly keep listeners up to date on the latest developments in the pandemic.
And we've done that. Every 2 weeks, we brought you stories on everything you needed to know to stay safe and informed as we all weathered this viral storm.
In March of 2023, we broadened our scope to a range of other health topics. We brought in a bunch of smart scientific experts, producers, and editors. And the show became the Your Health Quickly you know and maybe even kind of love.
We produced a total of 73 episodes. We'd like to thank our editors, producers, and guests, and all of you who listened to us and wrote in to share your questions and feedback.
But just because YHQ won't continue in its current format doesn't mean that you will be rid of us.
That's right. We'll still be serenading your ears with important and fascinating developments in health and medicine. And of course, some punishing puns. Stay tuned. And now, one last time, for Your Health Quickly, I'm Tanya Lewis.
And I'm Josh Fishman.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Here's how the voting system works, or doesn't. I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In November 2026, Crystal Mason, thinking she was doing her civic duty, went to the polls to cast her vote. But her name was not on the voting roll, so Ms. Mason did what typically happens. She cast a provisional ballot. It turns out that Ms. Mason was not eligible to cast a real ballot because she was on federal supervised release. That's not a voting disqualification in many states, but it is in Texas, where she and her 3 children lived. Everyone agrees Ms. Mason didn't know that. But Texas prosecutors didn't care at all. They maintained lack of criminal intent was irrelevant. All that matters was that she illegally cast a provisional ballot, and she was convicted of voter fraud and sentenced to 5 years. 5 years for casting a provisional ballot that was never counted. Finally, in April 2024, a Texas court rejected that theory and acquitted her. So, all's well that ends well? Not really. First, Ms. Mason had to live through years and years with a 5-year prison sentence hanging over her head. Second, the case sadly may teach people who have had a brush with the law to not risk trying to register and vote. The stakes are too high. That's wrong, but fortunately, Ms. Mason has taught us another lesson about fortitude and the importance of fighting for your rights. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. After a 2023 resolution by the Republican National Committee, GOP state legislators have pushed legislation to ban ranked choice voting. April 29th, Oklahoma became the 7th state to ban RCV, but other states are considering its adoption. Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt signed HB 3156, which specifies, quote, no election conducted by the state election board, a county election board, or any municipality authorized to conduct elections in Oklahoma shall use ranked choice voting. Oklahoma joins Florida, Tennessee, Idaho, Montana, Kentucky, and South Dakota. In 2016 and 2020, Maine and Alaska adopted RCV for specific elections, and nationally, scores of municipalities now use it for local elections. Nevada voters approved a first step in 2022 and vote on the constitutional amendment again in November 2024. Oregon voters also consider it this fall. Vermont may consider a bill next term, and an Illinois state task force reports next year on RCV's possible use in 2028. Ranked choice voting eliminates the need and expense for separate runoff elections, requires a majority vote to win, encourages issue-based campaigns, and offers voters more candidate choices. Major party critics claim RCV is too complicated and see it as a threat to party dominance. We have more on ranked choice voting at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1937. That was the day animators struck Fleischer Studios in New York City. It was the industry's first strike. Creators of Popeye the Sailor Man and Betty Boop were fed up with working conditions at Fleischer. They were sick of the long hours, low pay, no paid sick leave, or even vacation time. Some had worked years without a day off. As well, they resented having to ask permission to use the bathroom. Animation workers wanted better working conditions and medical insurance. 2 animators had recently died of tuberculosis, and workers linked their deaths to poor ventilation in the studio. They had been trying to organize with the Commercial Artists and Designers Union for over a year. 2 leading animators were fired for union activity a month earlier, and another 13 were fired when the union approached the studio demanding their reinstatement, union recognition, wage increases, and benefits. In his book, Drawing the Line, Tom Cito writes that picketers were soon marching on Broadway singing, "We're Popeye the Union Man. We'll fight to the finish because we can't live on spinach." One picket sign read, "I make millions laugh, but the real joke is my salary." Strikers receive support from the Screen Actors Guild. The Musicians Union refused to provide soundtracks for the studio, and many union projectionists refused to show Fleischer cartoons across the country. The AFL organized a boycott of Paramount Pictures, which financed the studio, and area longshoremen frequently joined the picket lines. After 5 months, the studio finally caved, granting the strikers' demands. But the victory was short-lived. Fleischer made moves to relocate to Florida within a year, in part to bust their union. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 45 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting highs in the low to mid-60s, so a bit warmer than yesterday, even though the report says nearly the same. This actually will be a tad warmer. Partly to mostly cloudy throughout the day with winds out of the north at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then clear skies tonight with lows in the upper 30s. Winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And then mainly sunny skies tomorrow with highs in the low to mid-70s. Winds out of the north-northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. And we will be seeing a steadily increase in temperatures during the day, with nighttime lows still in the 40s, low 40s. Oh well. Grass pollen is rated very high right outside the window here in Rogue River. Wish I could blame it on that. Blame what? Yeah, my stuffy nose. The air quality index for the region, though, is in the good range at 31 parts per million. And that daytime UV index remains very high at level 8, so you know to take care. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.29 inches. Visibility is at 6 miles, and relative humidity is at 94%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. London is 65 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 68 and fair. Rome is 68 and partly cloudy with a thunderstorm advisory. Bagram is 66 and clear. Hong Kong is 75 with rain showers. Tokyo is 68 and cloudy. Melbourne, Victoria, Australia is 52 degrees and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 54 and sunny. Chicago, Illinois is 60 degrees with rain and a marine statement that says that there are heavy and severe thunderstorms making its way to the water. So in Chicago, the Windy City, and thunderstorms on the water, yeah, look out. And New York, New York is a pleasant 74 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Rita C. Baldor of the Associated Press World Desk brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. An American soldier visiting a girlfriend in Russia's port city of Vladivostok was arrested on charges of stealing from her and remains in custody. U.S. officials said the soldier, Staff Sergeant Gordon Black, age 34, was stationed in South Korea and was in the process of returning home to Fort Cavazos in Texas. Instead, officials said that Black, who is married, traveled to Russia to see a longtime girlfriend, a honeypot girlfriend. His arrest only further complicates U.S. relations with Russia, which have grown increasingly tense as the war in Ukraine drags on. Why would he go to Russia? Well, I guess he had a girlfriend, a honeypot girlfriend. Cynthia Smith, Army spokeswoman, confirmed that the soldier was detained on Thursday in Vladivostok, a major military and commercial Pacific port, on charges of criminal misconduct. Yeah, he was hanging out with a honeypot. She said Russia notified the U.S. and the Army told the soldier's family. According to officials, the Russian woman had lived in South Korea, and last fall, she and Black got into some type of domestic dispute or altercation. After that, she left South Korea. It is not clear if she was forced to leave or what, if any role Korean authorities had in the matter. You know, Korea kicks out spies, just letting you know. Officials also said that Black, an infantry soldier, did not tell his unit that he was going to Russia and did not receive any authorization to go there. They said he was essentially on leave as he left Korea to redeploy back home to Fort Cavazos. It is unclear, however, if U.S. service members are specifically prohibited from traveling to Russia, although the State Department strongly advises U.S. citizens not to go. World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Jordan yesterday, Monday, stationed 2 helicopters in Cyprus to help the Mediterranean island nation combat potential forest fires until it can lease firefighting aircraft of its own for the summer fire season. The Cypriot Environment Minister said the Cypriot government considers firefighting and prevention a national security matter and is also moving to purchase 10 aircraft for that reason. The minister welcomed the 18 Royal Jordanian Air Force technical staff, crew, and pilots who will stand shoulder to shoulder with us in aerial firefighting. The Cypriot government will cover the Jordanian mission's expenses through its deployment. It was unclear how long that would be. The Jordanian helicopters will bolster a fleet of at least 3 other aircraft from Cyprus's police and National Guard, including a helicopter from 2 military bases that Britain maintains on the island that will be on round-the-clock call. The Jordanian deployment comes after a Cypriot proposal to set up a regional firefighting hub in Cyprus, from which aircraft and other technology could be dispatched to help put out fires in neighboring countries. 2 years ago, Jordan's King Abdullah II replied by offering to station firefighting aircraft in Cyprus through the summer fire season. Cyprus, Greece, Jordan, and Israel have often assisted each other in recent years by sending firefighting teams, gear, and aircraft to help combat massive wildfires. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesday. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.